Rojava, a future sample of anarchism, and more specifically anarchist communism. This is a video that can be related to the new project that came out by YouTube historian Project Middle East. I am not associated with the collaboration, but I want to make some tribute to be part of the larger role of the history of the Middle East. The link of the playlist will be in the description. For whatever reason, if the video doesn't is not in the description or I'm somehow failed to do that, whoever is part of the collaboration, please verify me. First, what is Rojava? Rojava is the name for what will be the larger part of Kurdistan by the Kurdish people, which are the second largest racial/ethnic group in the world that doesn't have its own nation. The first people will be the Tomi people if we judge it by pure numbers, how many of the population. We have to talk about Rojava and their influence on anarchism. Their society is based on anarchism, specifically anarcho-communism, and even more specifically under the philosophy of Murai Bookchin. But we have to talk about the Syrian revolution. With the emergence of the 2011 Arab Spring, Syrians began assembling in support of the uprising in Tunisia, Egypt, and Libya. Protesters in Syria spread rapidly in March of that year, using horizontally organized forms including the local coordinating committee and local council. Syrian had experimented with local autonomy and community control and had taken inspiration from the late anarchist Syrian economist Omar Isis. However, these Syrians had collaborated something uneasily with groups in the predominantly Kurdish part of northern Syria, also known as Rojava, home to the democratic Confederate experiment that explicitly opposed the state, capitalism, patriarchy, and other forms of state. And they used a sample what is called democratic confederalism, based on the philosophy of Murai Bookchin's libertarian municipalism and communalism, by using a more different approach that is more consistent with the Kurdish people, and sometimes, depending how you view it, even more radical than Murai's Bookchin original proposal. With a population of 30 million, the Kurds are the world's largest stateless people. They have formed the majority of Kurdistan. Since 1999, their struggle for self-determination has taken an anarchist turn, and communities in Kurdistan have established direct democratic governance modeled from the Zapatista movement, which is also an anarchist society in Chiapas, Mexico. Compromise is that the majority of the movement has been diverse and multi-ethnic. For example, the Canton of Jazeera in Rojava, Kurds, Arabs, Syriacs, Chechens, Armenians, Muslims, Christians, Yazidi all exist together peacefully in this society. Founded in 1975 by the Kurdish Workers' Party, traditionally operated as a Marxist-Leninist group originally, demanding a Kurdish state independent from Turkey. Later, their struggle took an anarchist turn, to a large part of the theories of Abdullah Öcalan, and like earlier I mentioned, his inspiration from Murai Bookchin. A confederation of direct democratic communal institutions across Turkish Kurdistan, the KCK, or the group of communities in Kurdistan, affiliated groups that expand the anti-authoritarian anarchist tradition throughout the revolution. It's led in Kurdistan right now in Rojava specifically a direct democratic social revolution based on Bookchin's ideas since 2012, while the People's Protective Unit and Women's Protective Unit had defended territory from jihadist groups like ISIS, and also military operations from Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria. Before the Civil War, Rojava had 3.5 million residents, but now it's just 2.5 million people live there. In the assessment of the Black Rose Anarchist Federation, the Rojava Revolution has probably made more concrete progress toward libertarian socialism than any other large-scale struggles, at least since the Zapatistas. In the region with strongly patriarchal tradition, Rojava uprising has its significant advances in the position of women, and the social ecologist Janet Biel has summarized this. and I quote, "By today, the women of Rojava has shaken off the tradition and participate fully in public life in every level of politics and society. Institutional leadership consists not of one position but two, one male, one female official, with the second gender equality, and also to keep power from concentrating in one person's hand. The representative of the Yakitia Star, the umbrella organization for women's growth, explained that women are essential to democracy. They are even the antagonists of women's freedom. Strikingly, not as patriarchy as nation state and capitalist modernity, the women's revolution aimed to free everyone who are in this revolution what the proletariat was to the Marxist-Leninist revolution of the past century. It is profoundly transformed not only women's status but every aspect of society. Even the traditionally male-dominated strands of society, like the military, have been profoundly transformed. The People's Protection Union had joined by the YPJ, or Women's Protection Union, whose images by now have become world famous. Together with the YPJ and the YPG, are defending society against jihadist forces such as ISIS and al-Nusra and Kalashnikovs, and perhaps equally form a fierce intellectual and emotional commitment not only to their communities of survival, but political ideas and inspiration. Even LGBT activists in the movement contend in the movement's official line on gender is essentialist and excludes transgender and other queer identities, and over time they are trying to include LGBT members in the decision-making process. They make the decision-making in a participatory democracy, based on the anarchist principle of local autonomy and confederation. Local councils confederate at 4 levels from the street or village up to the region of Rojava. Each level, all councils require at least 40% of the participants to be women. In addition to the council based on locality, people from councils and that neighborhood committees also had commissions which administer criminal justice, establish worker cooperative, and protect the environment and organize defense. The level of governance, according to the revolution in Rojava, are the commune, the neighborhood, the district, the region. Each level had commission on the following 8 areas: women, defense, economics, politics, civil society, free society, justice, and ideology. A health commission is also indirectly connected to the government structure. A commune consists of the city's residential street or rural village, with about 20 to 200 households. A commune usually has a public assembly every month or every 2 months. Anyone who can attend regardless of their party affiliate or ethnicity. The commune has a biannual or annual elect coordinate board whose members can be recalled by the commune's members. The board includes 2 co-chairs, a man and a woman, and a representative from each of the commissions. The board meets weekly and residents are welcome to attend and voice opinions. The neighborhood council confederates 7 to 30 communes and has 15 to 30 members who are required to follow mandates from the commune that elected them. The neighborhood confederate into districts and districts confederate into people's councils of the western Kurdistan. A small key can open a large door, describe the same 4-level council using different translation of the terminology. These terminologies, like neighborhood, district, cities, and region. And the book of the same name, The Small Key Can Open a Large Door, as the while the neighborhood assembly standard procedure is to vote, but many neighborhood councils make decisions by consensus. This is also known as consensus democracy, also again based on the principles of anarchism. Any adult or teenager can attend those meetings. Neighborhood council with the average size of 30 to 50 families confederate into district council, each with 5 to 17 neighborhood councils. The district council that confederate into city councils, and the city council confederate into the supreme council of the Rojava Canton. There is a tension between the grassroots and the authoritarian structure at the local level and the state structure at the confederate level with legislative, executive, and judicial bodies. According to Stranger in a Tangled Wilderness, the local council remain autonomous from the upper governmental structure, and no decision by a higher council is binding in a given neighborhood until it is ratified by the neighborhood council. Strangers write there is no federal government in the Rojava Canton system. In contrast, Black Pharaoh's Anarchist Federation argue that the PYD has created a new minimal state instead of abolishing the state. But again, this is more of a debate and how we define states. But for the most part, doesn't have actual power until the people decide so. The anthropologist, the late David Graeber, commented, "I don't think I ever heard anywhere else in the world where there's been a dual power system where the same political force create both sides. There's the democratic self-administration that has all the former Trapean state parliaments, ministers, so on, but it was created to be carefully separated from the means of coercion power. Then you have the TEVDEM, the Democratic Society movement, driven bottom-up directly democratic institution. Ultimately, and this is the key, the security forces are answerable to the bottom-up structure, not the top-down one. In late 2012, when it comes to economics, the Rojava Council officially eliminated private property, transferring ownership of all buildings, land, and infrastructure to the city council, and successfully become a socialization of the means of production. The council grant people the right to ownership by use, meaning the people that personally use the buildings or piece of land of infrastructure are the legal owners. According to the economical minister, Dr. Anja said, the free quarter of property is now commonly held, and the rest personally possessed. This is again under the principle of moral bookchin of communalism. Although the Article 41 of the Rojava Constitution shrines the right to private property, this right may refer to the type of personal possession, like houses, that Brujon called possessions in his work What is Property. In practice, the abolition of private property may be far from complete. Much of the land and capital is intended to remain in private hands and foreign corporate investors pursue according to black rules. Oil is Rojava's main resource because Rojava is the most oil-rich area in the Middle East, and this is the reason why Iraq, Iran, Syria, Turkey refuse to get Kurdish independent because they will lose their access to oil. About a third of Antwerp have been turned into worker cooperatives so far, according to the Ministry of Economics. Visiting Rojava, Janet Bell saw a sewing cooperative, a greenhouse cooperative, and a dairy cooperative, and import just enough oil to meet its own needs and use its own two refiners. The autonomous government has not levied any taxes on its residents or on its business. Most of the government revenue comes from the sale of its oil to its own residents to outside the region through a black market. An embargo on Rojava enforced by Turkey prevents Rojava from legally exporting oil, and they are forced in many occasions to do illegal means, which many people accuse them of doing anything but, you know, be as authoritarian or using racism slightly, you need capitalism in order to achieve. Because look at they're doing this illegally, ignoring the blockade. It's a thing going on. The school is non-traditional, rejecting ideas of hierarchy, power, and hegemony. Instead of following a teacher-student hierarchy, students teach each other and learn from each other's experience. This is based on the modern school movement that originated in Spain. Students learn what is useful in practical matter. They search for meaning as we are told in intellectual matter. Do not memorize, to learn to think for themselves and make decisions to become the subject of their own lives. Andrew Flach described three central elements of the Rojava's education, and I quote, "So far as I understand, economic change in Rojava is happening at the level of 1. Setting up cooperatives, 2. Provide essential necessities free, but from the point of view of consumption rather than production. 3. A certain amount of war communism, again from a wage abolition, not necessarily intended to be long term. In Kobané, under siege, food was reported by BBC journalists being freely available to all. Then we have the environment. Established councils especially dedicated to environmental problems. David Graeber had described it as such. Although he looked like a slightly scary Syrian military type with a leather jacket and stern austere expression, that you talk to him and he explained that, well, we feel the best approach to public health is prevention. Most diseases made possible by stress. We feel we reduce stress, level of heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer would decline. So our ultimate plan is to organize the city to be 70% green space." And also their unique approach of how to solve crime. In addition to community commissions and to charge criminal justice, Rojava had their own civilian security forces, or the Asisha. According to BN, the Asisha rejected the label police, since the police serve the state where they serve society, and they lack a hierarchical structure as well. The Asisha had to take a 6-week training in non-violent conflict resolution and feminism training before they are allowed to touch a gun. The ultimate aim is to give police training to everyone so they can eliminate professional police. Rojava has abolished capital punishment, parallel to Asisha, and older women's security force called the Asisha J is alone responsible for crimes involving women, children, domestic abuse, and hate crimes, in addition to sharing peacekeeping functions for the Cohen Asisha. Rojava's liberated area still maintain prisons, and Human Rights Watch has accused Asisha of arbitrary arrest, prisoner piracy, or unresolved disappearance and killing. Although many of the reports have been disputed because Human Rights Watch, when it comes to talk about countries that have more libertarian potential, tend to be very antagonistic. Looking for example Luna Oil when they talk about Vietnam or Cuba. And now, thanks to the successful anarchist revolution in Rojava, the other parts of Kurdistan, like Iraq, Iran, and Turkey, are also started their own revolution. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of autonomous self-governing cities and towns in Turkey, and Iraq has its own self-government, although it's not based on the principle of anarchism. It has a nation-state, and Iran is basically so far the weakest, so far when it comes to movements. But it shows you the potential what the people can do when you have the first taste of freedom.